Hi everyone. So this is Sophie for TogetherWeR Mondays once more, and today or this week's topic will be the trigger factor of eating disorder related material in any way. So that means like movies, books, stories, I guess, that could impact or trigger us in any way. And so the question of the week is going to go along with it. It's going to be if there was any particular story that impacted us positively or negatively. So I'm gonna do it in this order as well. So not like I did the weeks before where I put the question first. And this week has been much better, as you might be able to tell. I still kind of have like my belly button and everything because it just came back. So yeah, I have more of a plan, and so I will be looking down at my list to kind of have like a little bit of a concept in it. So what I wanted to say is that I definitely think that the impact of such material is major. And like from my own story, like I can tell, okay, I have like the real life examples, I guess, right in front of my eyes, but I know that basically what facilitated my eating disorder to develop was that I had all those books and movies and basically how-tos accessible. And so this is kind of a topic I'm probably going to be talking about quite a lot. So the impact of books is really essential because when we did our project in grade 7, and that was the thing that basically led to so many of us kind of developing that disordered eating behavior, was reading a book on the topic. And so it was one of those typical books. I think it's a German one. You probably can't buy it, or there's no English version. So, but it was a book that was kind of like the typical, like a girl starts to lose weight and she loses more and more, and then she's all pretty and all, like, and then suddenly she has anorexia, and then she goes into treatment, and then she comes out, like, the treatment part just lasts about like 10 pages maybe. So she gets in there, and then she gets out again, and she loses, like another 10 pounds in like a week, and then she goes impatient again, and then she comes out and everything's fine and she eats pizza. And so that was kind of like the first glimpse of an eating disorder I really had. And so I thought, well, what's the matter with it? Like, why is it so bad? And to make it easier, basically the book came with a really detailed description of what that girl was eating, how much weight she was losing, how much sports she was doing. So if you wanted to, you could just as well, like write down all of the, basically her meal plan, and do the exact same thing. And even like you could compare yourself with her and be like, okay, I lost more in doing this, or I lost less doing that. And so basically it was like a manual on how to become anorexic. And so I thought that was so bad. Like, looking back at it, at the time I didn't realize that, of course, but now being like 4 years older, I realized that basically portrayed such a wrong, like, I don't know, idea, or yeah, conveyed such a wrong message to all those young girls who are reading those books. I mean, it was declared a book for young people, like 10 to 16. And I'm thinking, like, you should not be reading such a book because that is a really sensible phase. And by reading such a book that comes with a manual on how to get an eating disorder, like, you were so treating it. And like, so did I, because I felt like I could read that and I felt ridiculous because obviously she could lose 10 pounds in a week. Like, it had dates, so you could actually follow along. And so she could lose 10 pounds in a week, and I couldn't. So I felt even worse, and I tried even harder. Like, that was really, really bad. And so I think also many of the books give you, like, a real good idea how to kind of get the mindset of an eating disorder. So it tells you, like, thoughts, or there are scenes where those girls, or sometimes even boys, look in the mirror and they describe what they see, and they say, like, they see a fat, or they see fat on their belly. And so I would take the book and I would go to the mirror and I would be like, okay, so she says there's fat on the belly, so let's check. Like it was totally ridiculous. But that's like if you're young and you're naive and you don't really understand what consequences could come from it. That's what you might end up doing. So I think those books are extremely triggering and actually extremely dangerous. And I know that there are exceptions out there. For example, there was a book I read which was called Skinny Boy, and it was written by a man who actually went through anorexia, and I thought that book was really well written. And it focused on the path to, well, recovery basically. And so that was actually way more accurate because it didn't focus on how to get the eating disorder, but how difficult it is to get rid of it once you have it. So I thought that was way better because it actually had some positive ideas, I guess, or some positive reinforcements that you could use for your own recovery. So I felt that was way better. And also much discussed as like Wasted by Maria Hornbacher. And so even I realized that Maria Hornbacher didn't want the book to be taken as like kind of sort of a manual, but at the same time I read it and I felt it was really, really, really triggering because some of the scenes she described just so, I mean, if she describes how she felt super light by not eating for a week, I mean, like, you just take it and you twist it and you turn it, you make it fit into your, and the eating disorder basically makes it fit into the perverse universe. And so I feel like there are certain books, or I would say the majority, you should not be reading, with exceptions. Like, for example, the book Skinny Boy that I just talked about. And same thing about movies. Like, I saw probably quite a few of them. Like, there was this one movie of a ballet dancer, and obviously I do ballet, so it portrayed all the destinies of those young ballet dancers, and one of them specifically who ended up having anorexia. And so you could also just follow along in how she became like skinnier and skinnier, and everybody else was jealous of her because she was suddenly like the skinny one. And so it's something I can relate to really, really well. But at the same time, I mean, I know what the movie makers are trying to say, but at the same time, my eating disorder just takes it and twists it and makes it into something that is like, okay, so she's a ballet dancer and she lost weight and she became prettier, so you would do as well. So I don't know. I also, from movies, I haven't really found anything that was really the opposite, to be honest. And that's a lot of the documentaries. Like, I've probably watched every single one of them. And so, also a lot of them, it was just, you basically see the people being, well, skinny in a way. And if that's what you're aiming for, then you just see that basically your eating disorder will get you there. And what you don't care about the consequences, really. You just see it and you just deduce from it that that's the way to get there. So you might as well, and I think that's really, really dangerous. So, like, and also because the topic has been discussed so much and it has been on so many, or like in so many books and movies and documentaries and newspaper articles, I think there's like this focus on it, and you kind of in a way get so much attention from it and on it and whatever, so you in a way feel like you might also get that attention if you do the same thing that those people did. So I do realize that a lot, like, these books are not meant to be that way, and I realize that also the movies, like, they are meant to basically scare you and prevent you from falling into the hell that eating disorders really are. But you just don't really, like, as soon as you have that mindset, you don't really get that anymore, or you'll feel bad, and you'll feel guilty because you realize that you take it entirely wrong, but you at the same time you can't really help it. And so I think the main thing is that those things are just like, it's a mental illness, so you cannot really show how it is, because the main war basically takes place in the person's head. So there is not really any way you could really accurately describe what's going on and make people feel and understand that. And the more you try, at the same time, the more you pull people into that mindset, because you make them, or you give them the opportunity to adopt those thoughts and like twists and turns of a disordered mind. So I think it's just really dangerous. And a thing that kind of goes along with it is like blogs. And I don't want to talk about inspo because that's like okay, an entirely different thing. But there is a lot of blogs, especially on Tumblr that kind of deal with the topic of eating disorders, but I'll do it in a really romantic way. It's like people say I'm starving, I'm dying, but at the same time it's kind of like it's this isolated world, but this kind of perfect broken world, and in a way you feel drawn to it because it seems like basically that is a different world that you can escape into, and so that seems quite appealing at times. And it's really important to realize that basically the eating disorder doesn't create a different world or universe. The only thing it does is it takes you away from everything you have. Like, it's basically take your current life, cut everything fun out of it, and add a lot of loneliness, a lot of despair, a lot of basically going nuts alone in your bed, in your room, wherever you are, and feeling entirely insane because there's not even anything that's happening that would explain that. So it's not that it would create a new person. It doesn't make anything better, and it doesn't really offer anything basically. It just, and all those media and books and whatnot create the illusion that it does. And I think it's really dangerous, especially if you don't have an eating disorder yet, or you are trying to recover, that you do not expose yourself to those sources. Because what I wanted to say specifically about recovery is that when you're in recovery, you're trying to get better, and you have to kind of keep focusing on what you lost by being sick and what you will gain by being healthy. And when you expose yourself to those media of any kind, what happens is that you feel like you are losing something. So you are not anymore part of this world. Like, you're not anymore the person, the special person, or you're not anymore, like, you're not one of them. And you may feel in a way sad or nostalgic about that, because you feel like something is being taken from you, a feeling that you have either way, because it's basically your security blanket, as many people say, is being taken from you. And then if basically those books and whatever show you the things you don't have anymore, even if you realize that they were bad for you, but you still feel like it's a loss. And so that will hold you back in recovery, if not cause you to lapse and relapse. And so yeah, that's kind of my rambling about that. And so the question was, like, which movie or book or story has impacted you positively or negatively? And sorry, I always have to like reposition myself every once in a while. I think what has impacted me positively was probably that book that I mentioned twice already, like Skinny Boy, just because I found it was really realistic. At the same time, there are books, I read, for example, Laurie Haley Anderson's Winter Girls, And I felt that was in a way kind of critical, because I could not really relate to it. Like, it was giving me the chance to see the whole thing from the outside, while at the same time being able to understand it from the inside. So that was really weird, but I felt like it didn't really trigger me specifically. Wasted triggered me quite a bit, because she describes it in such accurate detail that I could sometimes relate, or I could often relate to what she was saying. And so what happens is just what I just explained, that I felt that I don't have that anymore. So every once in a while I'll open the book and I'll start reading it, and I can feel myself being drawn back to it. So I try to not read that anymore. Definitely. And then what I find super triggering for me personally are those documentaries that show you those girls and how they're in treatment, and how they're all, you know, basically getting the help that so many of us are yearning for. And like, I found on Tumblr, actually, I found a really nice quote that said, like, it's not that people don't realize that they have an eating disorder, it's just that they want to be underweight or what they consider to be skinny to admit it, and the thing is, you never get there. But anyway, that's kind of what happens. So then you see those girls, and it's kind of like, for me at least, it's like they made it. They got sick enough so that they had to be admitted so that they could get treatment. So, and that's a really dangerous thought that could not be more untrue. But I still have my perverted thoughts, I guess, so I couldn't really help that. And what I wanted to mention once more, it's getting really long, I'm sorry, is that Demi Lovato, I mean, so many people congratulate her on what she has done, but I think she definitely touched me extremely positively, just because she made people realize that having an eating disorder is not something you can necessarily tell by how somebody looks, and you can't judge how much they were suffering by the smiles or by whatever it might be, like the superficial things that you might be judging that by. So I thought she did such a great job, and she's being so honest, and she's explaining really how difficult recovery is. And it's not just you go, like, even if you go inpatient, you come out 3 weeks later and you're all healed. I mean, that's not how it is. Like, it might just take you 6 months to get sick, and it takes you 6 years to recover. Like, that's the reality of having an eating disorder. And so sometimes I actually end up singing, for example, Skyscraper, and just it picks me up so much, because it's really one of those songs that makes you incredibly strong. And so watching her is really, like, there's nothing my perverted mind can turn around in any other way, because I feel like I would be offending her, and I would be destroying what she considers her purpose. And even my eating disorder realizes that that's, like, beyond unfair. So yeah, that's my rambling. I wish all of you a lovely day, or night, I should say, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.